This is video 9 in a series on outcome mapping, and this video is about organisational values. Now, organisational practices and values as introduced by IDRC. When I've done the training on outcome mapping, some people push back against this one. They suggest that it's not that relevant to program planning or program evaluation. But the thing is, it's really important that whatever practices are within your organisation, they are consistent with whatever programming you're trying to do. So for instance, in our social mobilisation program in Cambodia, it was very important that the staff felt themselves empowered. How can they go out and empower people if they themselves are disempowered? Now, there was a strange mismatch within our organisation because it was staffed with a lot of young people on volunteer postings. And because it was a faith-based organisation, that the organisation kept very tight control of what they saw were very young people. Now those young, they saw them as youngsters that had to be controlled. And so they had all sorts of rules about drinking, about going to each other's rooms after hours, etc. And so the whole organisation practice was around rules and regulations. And yet when those young people were sent into the field to mobilise communities and mobilise villages, they were asked to encourage the communities to break the rules, to think laterally, to actually be creative and say, why am I still poor after so many years? Why can't I try and do this? Why can't I try and do that? And so you had this mismatch between an organisation that practiced a lot of law, a lot of rules, and an organisation that intended to liberate and to fill people with hope and opportunity. What IDRC are trying to do is just make sure that those don't happen and that there is a connection between your internal organisational practices. So later on, when the programme was predominantly staffed by Khmer staff and many of the expatriate youngsters had gone home, when we were talking about pension scheme amongst the staff, we had a group discussion and people acted out and role-played a full 5 years of pension to see what would happen. And that was exactly the sort of stuff that we were doing with the villages. There was a consistency between the way the staff were working with each other and the way they worked in the village. IDRC want to focus on participation. That's one of the key sort of underlying assumptions amongst outcome mapping. Learning, the whole idea of outcome mapping is to keep learning and to adjust your program accordingly, even in this complex environment. And so those are the sorts of practices that they're requesting and asking you to check. What are our organisational practices and what are our organisational values? Do they match our outcome mapping intentions?